Okay, welcome. 2024 State of the Foundation, all the things kind of update. Admitting Tammy here. For those of you that I have not had the chance to meet yet, my name is Ben Smith. I am the executive director of the Yaya Foundation. Joining me on the call today from the staff, and they will introduce themselves when they begin their section, is Director of Research, Science and Research, Valerie Greger, and coordinator of community engagement, Keely Meda, um, and then co-chair of the community engagement committee, which you will learn more about, Tammy Bach. Um, Ron Garber is unable to join. He is chair of the board, and so we will continue to discuss touch points and things that we have set up for 2025. So just wanted to give you guys a glimpse into 2024 and catch you up to speed on where we find ourselves here in the middle of December and spend a lot of time kind of ringing the bells and launching into 2025. The one thing I want to start with is acknowledging that different than years past, the foundation has been quieter this year. And it is for a couple of reasons. One, 6 years ago when the foundation was launched, a lot of the mechanics, a lot of the infrastructure, and a lot of the core mission work was strictly science. And so, naturally, with science, which takes a while, after a really robust science year and the conference and a lot of reporting out, it is natural to let some of those projects and that science breathe. And so, one of the things that I'm sure all of you can appreciate is many people in our community look for answers. And when answers are not prevalent or easy to find, it's really difficult to go out with just a glimpse of partial information. That does not do well. And it actually leaves, the feedback I get is it leaves a lot of people anxious. And so we have been really intentional to not go out with partial information and to let the scientists keep doing the work and know that we will ring those bells and celebrate that work as progress is being made. And we will talk a little bit about that with Valerie today. Um, the second piece is when I first started, almost 2 years ago now, the first year was a lot of me carrying out work that had already begun. And so I never really had an opportunity to chart kind of what the next 3 year strategy is and put pen to paper and give the foundation some pause to really think through where we need to go to not only meet the meet the moment in the science, but a number of you may or may not know there is a vast need for family support and patient support that has risen over the last year, year and a half, that really complements um, and stretches our mission a little bit to not only think about what we're doing, excuse me, not only doing in the science, but also in the care. And so I have taken several months of this year to really map out a care strategy so that as the science is going and is our long-term North Star, we are meeting the moment and making sure that we have the capacity to equip the needs of some of the families. And that's where some of the community engagement work um, that Keely is going to help be a liaison to and really shepherd with Tammy and her co-chair Marcy Flores. Um, so, with that said, we started the year doing some conference wrap up, and then one of the very interesting opportunities that availed itself was working in collaboration between the Chen Zuckerberg Initiative, CZI, and the patient advocacy program at Notre Dame. many of you may not know, I had no idea. Notre Dame has a minor curriculum in patient advocacy, and they used or contacted the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative to think about a good foundation to come alongside and work with. Um, and Yaya Foundation was chosen to be a good partner in that work. And in that work, it's then where I was able to use um, their group of students to help me build some business plans and cases for support around um, clinic engagement, expanding our clinic network, some patient support, financial support plans, um, and also thinking through how we can help support the the up and coming researchers who are not yet primary researchers or investigators, but who we want to keep in the pipeline so that we are growing our bench of those in science and in the research field who are interested in 4-H leukodystrophy. So I worked with students in the curriculum at Notre Dame to really start putting framework around some of those ideas and putting some budget around those ideas. So as I think about what dollars needs to be raised and some of what our metrics for support are, they were really helpful in starting that process. So we are starting to move some of that work forward. And one of the biggest blessings that came out of that work is a senior who graduated from Notre Dame this year. Marin is her name, and she will be in touch with you in 2025. She has become a grad intern for us, and she is studying genetics at UPenn. And so she has already been plugged in with CHOP, gotten to know people at the leukodystrophy team there, and is going to work in our patient-facing patient outreach support pieces for the foundation. She's really interested not only in patient support, but thinking through sibling journeys and what siblings are dealing with throughout this medical journey. Um, and so she is brilliant. She is incredibly passionate about our community, and I'm so excited to have her on board. And so she's going to be doing some work for us in 2025, and will introduce herself to you guys early next year. Um, in addition to that, there was some work in Global Genes, which is kind of the merger with RareX. Every year they host an annual conference. The IF Foundation I attended. It was in Kansas City. Um, and then the big work that happened this year that Valerie will go next and speak of is we did site visits. Well, actually, I'll take one step back. I got a call from a couple families in Amsterdam, and then was able to connect with Dr. Wolf because it turned out that at that time, there were 6 European families that that all coordinated appointments and had appointments in Amsterdam with Dr. Wolf at the same time, which is something that never had happened before. And so I was able to do a really brief site visit to Nicole and Nicole's team, but then also introductory visits with 6 European families who then served as kind of the incubator to a European 2025 family gathering. And so that is launching and it's going to happen in May of 2025. Um, and so that was just a really cool, that was in March of last year, March, April last year, or this past year. And so it was a really cool way to set the tone for the year. It also then provided an opportunity where we essentially, over this last 7 months, have done a full audit of um, where our scientists are at with the work that's in front of them and where they want to go. And so essentially what was asked of them is over the next 3 years, what are your research goals and projects? And what we asked them for was essentially not only the work, but the cost, so on and so forth. And we got 100% participation back from our whole science advisory group in kind of charting the course on our next 3 year roadmap. And so this year we were able to do site visits, either myself or Valerie, to all of our science advisors and get to know their labs and the work that they're doing. And that's really framing then where our North Star is over the next 3 years of where we're putting all of our energy in science. And so um, I encourage you, like I said, we will take the first probably 40 minutes of this call. So from now until 20 till to present material and then take the last 20 minutes to answer questions and have a community conversation. So if there's anything that I just talked about that piques your interest, please put that in the chat and we'll make sure to circle back. A couple of the community pieces I'd love to just talk about are the Triptos in Ohio executed their 6th or 7th annual 4 for 4-H golf tournament. Um, Donated a check of $20,000 from revenue from that tournament to the foundation, and over the course of their 6 years have surpassed $250,000 in revenue for 4-H research. In addition, the Derricks, who I do not believe they are on, they, in coordination with a brewery in Seattle, did a custom brew, Captain Brave, um, and it was in a tap room, and so proceeds from that brew came to the foundation as well. And so there's a variety. I'm in conversation with the Martin family in Alabama around a fundraiser, and then Eileen and her family who continue to do their 5K and have dedicated a research fund within our foundation to keep that work going. So we are continuing to see an uptick in interest in family engagement and family network fundraisers, and it is truly amazing. Really meeting the moment and putting our best foot forward. So from a science and kind of community engagement, fundraising space. That is a really brief summary of where we have been and where we see ourselves right now. And so now we will take the time. First, Valerie's going to talk more in depth about the science piece. And then from Valerie, we will turn it to Keely. Keely is going to talk about some of the goals or roadmap in community engagement. Tammy, from her perspective, in partnership with Keely, can talk about what's to come from the committee if she has anything to add. And then I will wrap up with talking about some of the family gatherings happening in 2025, and then we will answer questions. Valerie.
Okay, I'm on. Yeah, I'm Valerie. I'm the science person in the foundation. I think many of you know me. I'm a geneticist by training, but I spent a lot in time in industry. Hi. And have been working with the foundation for the last 5 years now. So I want to start a little bit just telling you what we did last year or in 2024 in terms of from the foundation to engage our scientists. And there was a lot of community building and relationship building, and that is very important. Ben has already mentioned the site visits where we visit people in their lab. And that has been really, really helpful for everything. First of all, it does put sort of a face on the Yaya Foundation. They know who we are. We meet not only our advisors that we might meet, at conferences or somewhere else, but we meet their lab people and their scientists and their clinicians that they work with. And that is incredibly valuable because we forge relationships with people that we might afterwards and have reached out to. And these are also in the lab, often the younger people, the up and coming people that we want to engage in over time. So that was one thing. As Ben mentioned, he was in Amsterdam. We went to Dr. Bonkowski in Utah. Um, Dr. Florian Eichler and Sam Baxter, they are both in Boston, where I live. So that was an easy site visit and we also talked to Ian Willis, and you will see these names again on the later on a slide that I see, if you don't know already. So this is really good, and I want to mention something else in that context. We are also planning to have a clinic engagement network where we, together with Margot Hutchinson and Elsa Keeley and Marion, the intern, we really want to have in every leukodystrophy clinic a person that knows us and that helps us to refer, to connect to patients, but also for us to support them. And Dr. Hutchinson and Dr. Keeler, these are both physicians. One is a pediatrician and a family practitioner who really have their feet on the ground and know what is needed to support physicians. So we want to do that, and with that, help you to, engage better with your medical team, and things like that. And but through these visits that we did, we are already connected to some of the coordinators in these clinics. So this is one thing, just as a deviation. The other things that we do is we really try to engage in the scientific community. We are part of the GLIA network that comes out of the global leukodystrophy network that comes out of CHOP. And that is another way to stay connected to other groups. When we talk to these clinics also, we are needed. We've gotten really good responses from the people that we visited. And we as a patient advocacy group, you as patients, we have clout. We can do things. We are needed for research. So I want you to keep that in mind, just as encouragement. One thing that we do also is when we participate in these larger networks, is we can do small things that together with all the other advocacy group have a big impact. We signed, a couple of letters of support for grant applications, for instance, for Dr. Bernard. It is very important these days if you apply for federal money or for that you can show as a clinician that you are connected to an advocacy group. So this is something where we can really already make a difference. The other thing is there are some legislative actions, groups that we know about through the GLIA network and the Zuckerberg network, where we can at least support legislations that is good for patients, such things as, that you will be able to have telehealth medicine to make that access easier. The question about the pediatric priority review vouchers. We have, signed on these letters and have our voice heard there and contribute to making progress there. So this is sort of about the networking, but I want to spend most of the time talking to you about what Ben already introduced, the audit of the science. Where are our scientists and where are we at in science? And I want to show two slides for that. Um, just to see you. Hang on a sec. I'll share my screen here. I've taken the answers that we gotten from our scientists and clinicians um, and put them sort of in a framework. We do this often where we say, when you kind of take stock, where are we in research? What in our disease is accomplished? What do we have to make progress? And let me show you the first slide. Hang on. Um, right. Can you see that? Yeah. Okay. Um, So what you see here now is the first stage where we kind of take stock about what the status of the research is, what we have, and this means that the resources and tools, sort of the toolbox that we need in order to do science and learn about our disease or any disease in general. And this is pretty self-explanatory. These are our genes, the various that have been identified. These are the various things that we need. The colors mean sort of green means sort of, yeah, we are good there. And the more red it gets, the less we have there. So that is somewhat self-explanatory too. And I just want to briefly walk you through that. It seems probably trivial to you when I say the genes have been identified, but actually this is often really the very first biggest step for making progress in understanding a disease and making diagnosis. So we at least have that. That is good. As you know, about 40% of the leukodystrophies are from polyarthria, about 43B. Polyarthria C accounts for about 5 to 10% of cases, and the other ones are exceedingly rare. So the first thing that we try to do when we do research is we need sort of models, either animals or cell lines, in order to understand, so in order to do tests. And we have made some progress there. We do have mouse models for polar 3A and polar 3B. I think there is a mouse model in development for polar 3C. These are the labs that are working on that. That is Dr. Willis' lab in New York. You all know Dr. Barnard. Dr. Barnard and Dr. Trainer from Kansas City collaborate on the CMOuse. Similar, we do have cell lines and things that are called organoids, like cell line cells that are almost have that are kind of cultivated in a way that they are almost like little organs, like little brains, not quite as complex, but there's a substitute for that. These exist. This is very, very helpful. We know about this in Dr. Bernard's lab, among other reasons, because we heard about it when we were in Montreal and at the site visit. But the other labs have these two. I just haven't quite figured out who has what, but that is that. Where we are not that great in terms of the toolbox is natural history. We have started there. There is already projects going that have been funded by the Yaya Foundation. But in terms of biomarkers, we have some, but not really good. There is MRI, but it is not that great. There is a project in progress right now as part of the natural history study at Children's Hospital in Philadelphia with Dr. Vanderveer, Dr. Konen, and Dr. Adang. I left her out there, sorry. To find RNA markers in blood as biomarkers. They are working on that. That's why this is in orange, but there has not been, we don't have a good biomarker yet. They have not identified what they really want to. In terms of functional assays, and I'll come back to that, these are kind of ways to measure whether a cell is responding to a drug or not. We don't have that really. Dr. Wolf in Amsterdam has requested funding. She has an idea to do this, but this is not underway. So going to where we could put our money and what things. So these are things. Sorry, these are things that we need in order to make progress with research. There are others, but these are the main ones. And I just wanted for a moment point out, the Yaya Foundation has already funded the mouse model in Dr. Bernard's lab. So we have done this, but Dr. Bernard has required supplemental funding for additional experiments. We have already funded part of the biomarker study, but once again, there is additional funding requested. We've been funding a small part of the natural history study. Part of this is the biomarker study is part of that. But once again, in order to have a full-blown natural history study, which we really need, we need a lot of more funding, and that has been requested from the three labs. Dr. Van der Weer in Philadelphia, Dr. Bernard in Montreal, and Dr. Wolf in Amsterdam. So this is where we have lacking. And then Dr. Wolf has also requested money to develop an assay. So if we have that toolbox, and we have at least some of these things where we might develop them fairly soon. What we really want to do is, of course, we want to develop treatments with these toolbox. And this is where we are, where the status of research is in sort of potential paths to treatments. Once again, here are the various our genes that we know about, and here are the various things that we can imagine that are potential paths to treatment. You know about gene therapy. Dr. Bernard, together with Dr. Gao, have started experiments on that for Polar 3B. This is underway. We have funded that. They want to have, of course, additional funding, but they also have already leveraged our funding and the results that they had from that to a big follow-on grant from the Canadian government, which is really a big success for us, because it means that our money that we've put into that research group has enabled them to bring in more funding to continue their research. So this is very good. For Polar 3A, gene therapy with AAV is probably possible, but it's difficult. So there might be other things that should be done. And that is where we can look in other kinds of therapies using a different vector to get the healthy gene into the brain, and a different, instead of DNA, RNA. It is possible for all our genes, but there has not been made a lot of progress in that regard. There is gene editing, a method you might have heard about it. It is relatively new. It has been successful in sickle cell disorder. You might have seen the news. Dr. Wolf would like to has thought about we have has suggested that we should try that for Polar 3A. And she has a lab with which she could collaborate in doing so if she can get the funding for it. So that's why there is this package of dollars there. That is a project where she has required funding. There are other things I don't want to talk too much of those, but there's not much there. There's one Polar 3 regulation, which would have it's an approach to go into the pathway of polar 3 expression and basically um, get the cell to make more polar 3 of all of them, which might help alleviate or to with the symptoms. And as I said, this the beauty of that approach is that it would work probably for all mutations and for all genes. So that would be good. There is some preliminary work that has been done by Dr. Willis in New York. But once again, he has requested funding to continue that work. Um, Dr. Bonkowski has suggested a new project, um, which would be for specific mutations of specific variants. Um, he has considered it, he has ideas, but once again, he does not have funding. He has requested funding from us. And there are, of course, always small molecules, which is like what we usually think about drugs, small pills that you take. These are possibilities, but unfortunately, in order to do the screening for small molecules, we do need a high throughput assay. And that goes back to the previous slide in the toolkit, where I said a functional assay that is high throughput, which means you can test many, many, many substances at once and not just one off the other. This has requested by Dr. Wolf, who would really like to develop this assay and then would continue to do small molecule development if we can. And so you can see um, we do have some tools. You know how it is. You always want to have another tool, but we have some things on our hands. We have some things that are missing, but that are within reach. And there are ways that people think about of developing a therapy or at least a life or at least a sort of disease modifying therapy for H. We just need to get there. So this is my spiel. Um, as I said, it was I think $4 million over the next 3 years that all of these projects would cost in the terms of funding that our researchers have requested. And hopefully we will get there and support at least some of these projects. So that is what I have to say. Ben, do you want to add something or?
Yes. And so the work that's being done so what's happening behind the scenes right now is doing a full mapping of this work and putting it into a campaign format. I
Mhm.
just had a campaign or a visit um, several weeks ago, where I put a $1 million 3-year gift in front of a potential donor to kind of kickstart this campaign. I think one of the things that has become clear to me is we have spent the resources, the time, and we have engaged the science advisory to go out to them and say, over the next 3 years, based on the mouse models we have and the work that's being done, we have we're at an inflection point and we have an incredible point of really doing some breakthrough work. What needs to be done? And this is what was given to us. This is the work that needs to be done. And so in the meeting I had recently with this donor, he said to me, what if we can only do part of it? And my response to him is, we weren't put here to do part of it. Because as soon as you start cherry picking some of it, then all of a sudden the sequence falls away. And now none of it feels like it's moving as quickly as potentially it could. And so, as executive director in building community and building out plan, we're here to do it. Like it's in our name, it's what we're here for, and it's here for all of the kiddos and patients that are counting on it, right? So I feel really strongly about it. $4 million over 3 years, includes all the operational costs needed to manage Valerie, to manage the technology, to manage the data, and to fund the work. Um, and so what I am putting forth is a plan. So all of 2025 will be used to raise the 1.1 or so that is needed to fully fund the year one of the plan, which then the plan will carry out in full execution between 2026, 27, and 28. Okay, so from a science perspective, um, we will use next year to get all of the more detailed project plans from each of the researchers, to get all of the more specific budgets, to have all of those in hand, and then if everything aligns, we will write all of the grants then in quarter one of 2026. Okay, so um, I will leave it at that, and then I'll pick it up in just a second. But I want Keely to be able to introduce herself briefly and just talk about some of the work she's doing from the community engagement perspective.
Hi, everybody. My name is Keely, and you might know who I am. I used to work for the United Leukodystrophy Foundation. I departed the ULF back in June of this year. I now work for a different company, but I am thrilled to be able to still be with you all here in the leukodystrophy community with Yaya Foundation, more on a part-time consultant and, you know, independent contractor role. So Ben has asked me to assist with our patient engagement and making sure that our families feel supported and heard and given the opportunity to communicate with one another, engage with one another, so that we can all keep the isolation and feeling of alone to a minimum as much as possible. I know it's impossible to make it go away completely. But we are all here together to work together to create a better life and better lives, better quality of life for ourselves, for our loved ones, and for the 4-H community as a whole. So I would just like to give some brief highlights, and we are going to be announcing a full patient engagement uh, calendar in probably late January. We are putting together a calendar where we will have monthly meetings, quarterly topics that rotate. So we'll have a foundation and science update. We'll have a patient engagement night where it's a family fun night, just time for the families to come together and talk and have some fun. And if heavy conversations need to happen, then we can be here to support each other. But having that opportunity to come together is really important. And then we will also be having a newly diagnosed meeting once a quarter, so that any new families that come in or newer families that have questions and want to talk to what I'll call the veteran families, the families who have been in here for the long haul, we can open up to have those types of conversations too. So Ben and I are working together as well with Tammy and Marcy to come up with a very meaningful and regular meeting for our community to come together so that everyone is in the know and there isn't any question about what's going on in the community, what's going on with Yaya. We're going to make sure that the calendar includes transparency updates so that everyone feels like they're well aware what's going on within the community. And something else I'm going to be assisting Ben and Yaya Foundation with is being more active on socials. So if you happen to see a Yaya post, hit like, comment, even just a GIF, a little emoji, something, any of that engagement really helps boost the socials and puts our page out there to more and more people. So in the coming year, you're going to see more posts coming from the Instagram and the Facebook page. Whenever you happen to see them, give it a like, share it, comment. and get engaged so that we can continue to boost our mission and our page out to the people of the world. And as Ben had mentioned, I look forward to assisting however I can with the Amsterdam meeting and the family meeting that'll happen in Minneapolis later next year. So Ben and I are talking about what's going to happen there, and looking forward to seeing what we can put together for the families, and working together with our European community to get the Amsterdam meeting together, but then coming back to the US in the fall and focusing in Minneapolis and Minnesota, so that our families can come together and have a networking event and make sure that our community is remaining strong. So it's an honor to be here and represent you as a community, and be of assistance however I might be able to be. So thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Keely, and thank you. So Valerie, Keely, Marcy, Tammy, and myself met in Chicago to do some of the initial framework for community engagement committee. And so how we're really thinking about it is like any school parent group. We're going to be mapping that out, looking for, different quote unquote chair positions, and creating more of a robust structure for all of those that I keep getting emails and questions about how can I engage. And I want to dive in. Tammy and Marcy are co-chairing that effort. Keely is going to be the staff liaison to that effort. And then there'll just be different subgroups. And all of that is in the pipeline. Tammy, Marcy, any thoughts, additional notes that's top of mind for you?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Sorry, I didn't mean to take over. Just wanted to say hi. I see a lot of familiar faces. Miss you all. I'm looking forward to helping this endeavor take off.
To ditto what Marcy said, I am glad to see some new faces and the ones that I've seen too long. We really are trying to focus on making sure that our families feel supported with Yaya, and how Yaya should support the families. So it's a two-way street. Um, Ideas, suggestions, things you need, things you want. We're an open door. Feel free to contact us and kind of let us know, in the ideal world, how we can help you. And we will try to implement that into our structure and become more of a, not an advocate, but more of a support for the
Yeah.
families.
So things we've talked about are care packages, birthday cards, you know, just some of the lighter care packages or thank you packages to our science teams, like some of the recognition, some of the we see you, we hear you, just helping to facilitate some of that stuff so that as, the research is a long journey and we all want to be active and close and get as much as we can out of the research and science, and yet how can we sustain and support each other as that journey takes shape. So more of that work to come. A couple of things I do want to just mention really briefly before we spend the last 10 minutes here on questions. One, from Thursday, September 24th to Sunday, September 28th, I believe, Minneapolis, Minnesota will host the Yaya Foundation Family Gathering. And it is going to be incredibly family friendly. It is not going to be as program heavy as the Family and Science Conference. We are hoping that we can get one of our clinicians here to engage in kind of a Q&A of science over like a brunch or breakfast, but there will not be science heavy breakouts. We will be planning probably for the launch of that science campaign. So 2026, maybe between 26 and 7, another version of that science conference. But that will not be this. This September coming up is going to be family fun, kind of carrying the community aspect forward. In addition, that Friday night, so the 25th of September, is going to be the third annual Yaya Gala. And in the past, it has just taken place here in Minneapolis with our Minneapolis donors, rare disease office at the U of M, stuff like that. This year, it's going to be an intentional in-person board meeting will happen. Our families who are in town will attend. And so it'll be much more robust and representative of our community and be a family-friendly like fundraiser. And so that will happen that Friday night while families are in town. The last thing is this past October, we hosted our second annual Evening with Yaya Foundation at the Walker. And it was kind of our foundation fundraiser with the board and local network. And during that event, we launched a $1 million campaign. And the campaign's purpose is to really get us in a space over the next, at that time, over the next 14 months or so, to be able to really be in an operational capacity space to launch and sustain a 3-year medical research campaign. And so essentially what it is meant to do is from a technology standpoint and updating and moving our website into a WordPress site so it's just more user friendly, getting our technology more in gear, getting our staff up and running, stuff like that. It was meant to kind of be the foundation to launch our science campaign. So next September, my hope, knock on wood, and with everybody's help, is to essentially close out that $1 million campaign and then really lay the groundwork for the celebration and the launch of what will be. My hope is to announce the $1 million gift to really lay the groundwork for the 3-year science campaign. So from a fundraising standpoint, there's a lot I'm going to try. There's a lot I'm trying to show up. And, I get a lot of feedback from families understanding and knowing the importance of fundraising and also being really uncomfortable with it and not knowing how to do it. And so that's part of what I'm also trying to facilitate are easy ways of engaging a workplace, neighborhood, family, professional networks. And those every dollar count gifts really do make a difference. The other place where I would really love to show up is if there is somebody in your network who is incredibly philanthropic, who is high wealth, who might have interest in that science roadmap. I put money in the budget each year for that kind of engagement work. And if there's a meeting, an introduction, any of those things that feel worthy, I am happy to make that happen. I'm happy to get Valerie there, depending on regions or geography. Because when I was talking to the donor about the $1 million gift, he was like, "Do you think we can get there?" And I said, $4 million over 3 years, in theory, it is very doable. And it's really doable when you can think about if I can get 20 people in a backyard for a barbecue and ask them all for a 3-year pledge of helping to sustain this, then you just start to think about how many people need to show up for a glass of wine or a barbecue or something like that. And if everybody can do a 3-year pledge, that makes it incredibly doable. So one of the things I'm doing next year is to try to make all of that more comfortable and tangible for the families who are really wanting to be a part of that piece of the journey. Otherwise, there's plenty of other ways to invest and show up and dig in. But I certainly know it takes a village. Okay, so just going through any particular questions, observations, concerns. And if at this point I'll move, we have 5, 10 minutes. I will move away from the chat if people, the science stuff is really, none of us pretend to know all of the science. And so if you have science
Nobody knows.
specific, yeah, if you have science specific questions, um, please just email those directly to Valerie. And she can get those onto those that are appropriate to answer those. I don't want us to misrepresent the science piece. Also, please note that Keely does have an email. So Keely at Yaya Foundation 4HL.org goes directly to her. Community at Yaya Foundation 4HL.org is our general email address that we are going to plug Marcy and Tammy into. Otherwise, obviously, I have direct communication. So let me just reinforce the communication plan, the engagement plan and communication plan for next year. We will start in January with an engagement, community engagement call, and it's all going to be around updating family records, patient data, and those kinds of things. So we have a huge project around our database and technology in order to get us science ready. And so that's going to be the first January call. Then February will be a foundation update call. No, sorry, February is going to be a science update call. March is going to be a foundation call because it'll be an update out of the board meeting. And then we will just go on 3-month rotations with those. So every quarter there will be a different pillar of the work being discussed. But once a quarter you will hear at least directly about science and at least directly about foundation operations. That's a lot of information in an hour, but I do hope it was helpful. Please think about your own capacity and when it comes to time, and just know that if you have a couple hours a month even to give, there's a place for you. And when we roll out a more cohesive framework in the community engagement piece, please think about where you can plug in. Stephanie Blanchette and Rebecca Tallman are going to co-chair the Minneapolis gathering. So if you want to be on that team, please keep an eye out for those communications. And I do want to just note on that gathering, because I know I'm going to get a lot of questions about it, is we will have a host hotel, but we will not have a room block at that hotel, because what we're recognizing is downtown Minneapolis has a whole bunch of different levels of hotels. And so it's all about what is most comfortable for everybody's budget. And there is going to be very little, if any, actual financial assistance available. And where we, as the foundation, will try to pitch in to reduce costs is around a breakfast option every day, some kind of snack, happy hour option every day. And then always come up with low cost or free programming. So we are really looking at it as a long weekend kind of family destination experience and trying to keep it as agile for families' budgets as possible, and not trying to corner everybody into the same experience. Any questions? Let me just make sure everything in the Yes, the 24th through the 28th of September 2025. So what that'll look like roughly that Thursday, travel day, Thursday night, welcome gathering, Friday, open programming still to be determined, Friday evening, all family community kind of gala fundraiser gathering. Saturday, we're looking at some kind of adult wellness option, chair massages, yoga, things like that. Um, every day there's going to be like a happy hour option and snacks. I don't know yet if like the Minnesota Twins are playing or what is happening there, but certainly if there's a interesting or fun gathering in town, um, uh, we will we will inquire about group tickets and stuff for that, or a Lake Minnetonka boat cruise dinner, things like that. And then of course I'm looking at some local sponsors and engagement that way as well. Sunday will be where I think we would plug in kind of a science farewell breakfast brunch, and then Sunday afternoon would be travel for folks. Um, I would say if you are hoping to come, which I hope many of you are, I don't think there will be time in that for a full Mall of America day, but I certainly would put it on your radar. It is worth building in to maybe you come on Wednesday, spend the day at the mall. Thursday you dive into all the Yaya stuff. It's fun for the kiddos. So, anyways. Thank you guys for being here. We will not be quiet for long, and we will see hopefully many of you back in January.
Thank you, Ben, for everything you do. Thank you, Val, for
Absolutely.
everything you do.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays, happy new year. Sending our prayers for a healthy, happy new year.
Yeah. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Yeah.